on the 28th of June, to which we have attached a sick note of one Dr. Mohatle in respect of the medical condition of Mr. Nyonya. I don't know whether you've been placed in possession of that.
I have seen a letter to which doctor's note was attached. But just tell me more about the position. I must say that I was a little concerned about the medical note. I'm not looking at it now. Do you want just to talk to me about the position?
Yes, perhaps it's very brief. Perhaps I just read it into the record just to refresh everybody's memories, Chair.
Yes.
It says, in respect of Mr. Lita Nyonya, it records the following. Kindly allow the above mentioned at least 21 days of isolation. Due to his symptoms suggestive of COVID-19, he's on daily medication for, it says 21 days of isolation and rest. Due to his symptoms suggestive of COVID-19, he is on daily medication for his symptoms. This letter is dated the 24th of June, which makes the sick note operative on my calculation up until the 15th of July, Mr. Chair. That's what the sick note records.
Well, I'll tell you what my concern was about this medical note, that the reference in it to isolation and symptoms suggestive of COVID-19 made me think that before Mr. Nyonya could seek a postponement, he should have gone for a test, because if he tested positive, then that would be quite clear. This simply says, due to symptoms suggestive of COVID-19, and it says he must be in isolation for 21 days, which, as I understand it, is almost double, probably double or more than the period of isolation that I understand to be applicable when you have been in contact with somebody who has tested positive, and when you have tested positive. So he has not tested positive, but this doctor says he must have double or more time for isolation than the time that all of us know to be applicable when you have tested positive.
Yes, Chair, if I may, I'm not a medical expert. I cannot express an opinion on this, but what I can say and what I can place on record is that Mr. Nyonya was probably exposed to a COVID interaction during a funeral, and his wife started showing symptoms early in the week thereafter, after which Mr. Nyonya sought the medical advice. At the time, he was in Knysna, and the advice was for him to self-medicate, to monitor the signs, and Mr. Nyonya made the election not to go for a COVID test to limit his further exposure. And the doctor's advice was that he would ride out the symptoms and see whether it gets worse or not, and then take medical advice on that score. So the medical advice was for him to have the conservative treatment which the doctor prescribed, and to have the 21 days of bed rest. I can't go beyond that. That's what the medical certificate said.
Mr. Chaskelson, have you got something to say?
Chair, not much more than the concerns that you have raised already. We don't know whether Mr. Nyonya does or doesn't have COVID. He doesn't know whether he does or doesn't have COVID, and all we have is a letter from a doctor who may or may not have examined Mr. Nyonya 6 days ago, at which point the doctor was led to believe that Mr. Nyonya had symptoms at that stage suggestive of COVID-19. We don't know what Mr. Nyonya's condition today is, whether he is or isn't able to testify. And it is an extremely narrow issue. It's not as though Mr. Nyonya is going to be asked a range of testing questions over a day's testimony. It's a very narrow question relating to an entry in a set of minutes from 2014 concerning conversations he had with the city manager and the MEC for finance relating to the renewal of a regiment's fund manager's contract. We simply don't know what Mr. Nyonya's condition today is like. And whether he is in a position to testify today or not. He's been advised apparently to take a conservative approach. That advice was given 6 days ago, presumably on the basis that the doctor at the time did or did not know whether he was or wasn't going to get COVID. We don't know what his position is like today.
Yes. Mr. Doffin, when last did you speak to him, to your client?
I have been in touch with Mr. Nyonya this morning, Chair.
Yeah.
He's not, although it's a narrow issue, he's not in a position to attend to the hearing today. It will obviously require him to give his focused attention on the issues to be canvassed, albeit in a narrow ambit. For the moment, that is the position. I can't take it beyond that. Mr. Nyonya, I can confirm, is not in need for hospitalization, so his position is simply has not deteriorated to an extent that he needs to attend to an hospital or to critical care. So he's not ill at a level that requires his hospitalization. All indications are that he will certainly be fit to proceed with his evidence beyond the time frame of the sick note.
Yes. Do you know whether he knew that I could allow him to testify virtually? He would not need to necessarily to come to the venue.
We were informed of that, and I had knowledge of that prior to today because of my interactions with you, Chair, last week in the other matter. So I know, know that this facility is available, and we have certainly canvassed that with Mr. Nyonya.
Yes.
So it's not an issue of potential risk of him exposing other people. It is more an issue of his own incapacity to deal with the matter at this junction.
Yes. Well, I am going to postpone. I've expressed my concerns about the medical note, but I will postpone. Can I ask you to continue to be in touch with Mr. Chaskelson, so that if even before that the date, the expiry of this period prescribed by the doctor, if he feels that he is fine, arrangements could be made, because as Mr. Chaskelson indicates, we shouldn't take too long with him. So I would appreciate if that can be done. As you know, we don't have a lot of time as the commission, so I would like you to do that so that if at all possible, and if his situation allows, we could consider having his evidence as soon as possible.
Mr. Chair, I will contact Mr. Chaskelson and be in touch with him on this score so that we can see how quickly we can accommodate the position.
Okay, no, that's fine then. Okay, I will therefore postpone the hearing of Mr. Nyonya's evidence to a date to be determined in due course.
We're indebted to you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much then. Thank you, Mr. Chaskelson. Thank you, Mr. Topping. We therefore adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.